Welcome to Women Like Me, Stories in Business, the podcast that will captivate you with stories of success, resilience, and growth. Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, a curious mind, or simply seeking motivation and inspiration, you'll gain practical tips, innovative strategies, and actionable advice that you can apply to your own life and business endeavors. Now here's your host, business coach, and master persuader, Julie Fairhurst.
Well, hello, everyone, and thank you for being here with us today. I am Julie Fairhurst, and I am the founder of the Women Like Me Stories and Business podcast. And today I am here with the fabulous Lisa Huppee, and she is going to talk to us about all sorts of amazing things. So, Lisa, thank you so much for being here today. And why don't you tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Oh, thanks for having me. I grew up in Edmonton area, and I've lived in BC for longer than I lived in Edmonton. So I don't know, about 32 years. And I live in Chilliwack. I have a puppy pack. I have a daughter and a son, and I have 3 stepkids because I got remarried. And I like living out where I am because it's kind of like the best of both worlds. You have like a city, but you also, it's kind of like living in the country.
Chilliwack's wonderful for that. Yeah. I have to ask you, what's a puppy pack?
Well, I have a few Yorkies and I have a Cavalier Spaniel.
Oh.
And so they're office puppies. They're in my office right now, kind of laying in their little doggy bed. And hopefully nobody comes to the door because they might bark, but that's about the only issue we might face there.
No worries at all. No worries at all. Well, thank you so much for agreeing to do this, Lisa. I just want to let everybody know that Lisa is a writer in volume 9 of the Women Like Me story series. And the book is called Women Like Me, Women Who Refuse to Stay Broken. And so when you hear a little bit about Lisa's story, you're going to totally get why she is in this particular book. So Lisa, I would love to start off by just quoting one sentence that you had in your story. And I love this sentence. I love it. I am a female entrepreneur. I have had a complicated life. I just love that because it really defines who you are, but it also tells me just from that one sentence that it probably wasn't an easy road for you to get to where you were. So one of the things that, your title, I'll tell everybody the title of your story in the book, The Desire to Do Better, Why Can't It Happen? And I think that really, just that title alone gives women the hope that why can't it happen? Why not? So a lot of the things I was reading through your story, you did a lot of talking about being stuck and being unsure and being a people pleaser. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how that may have negatively affected you, or maybe that positively affected you?
Well, I think being a people pleaser, like when you grow up, that's your role in the family is the people pleaser. You kind of bring that to every relationship and workplace that you go to. So, people know that, oh, ask Lisa, she'll do it, that kind of thing. So I always was willing to help people. I always thought that the value of hard work and showing that you were there for other people was important. It took me a while to realize what level of a people pleaser I really was and to set stronger boundaries. So that was important as a realization for me as a person to set stronger boundaries, because there are people who aren't like me. They go into things with good intentions. Sometimes they're just out to use you or to put more work on you so they don't have to do it, or whatever the reason. So knowing that, I think was, and starting to work on those boundaries with other people, whether it was family members or people in the workplace, it was really important for me.
I guess that comes down to just as well. I guess when you get those boundaries, then you're able to say no.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can say to people, no, I can't help you with that today.
And and feel okay.
And not feel guilty. Yeah.
Right. I think that's I think one of the biggest struggles, I think, is that everybody, when they do say no, they do feel guilty about it. Yeah. The other thing that I found interesting about your story is you went for lunch with a couple of your girlfriends, and they said something to you that you had a really hard time accepting. And they said, "Girl, you are impressive. You should be proud of what you have accomplished, and I'm proud of you." And why don't you tell us a little bit about what happened? Because I think it didn't really click in for maybe 24 hours or so emotionally.
Yeah. And I get teary even thinking about it, because I'm like, I didn't realize until later, like, the degree of how I just brush off positive comments about myself. Sorry, it just makes me, it still makes me sad.
No, that's okay.
It's just, I never, like, as a kid growing up, I never got that positive reinforcement. And so it's like I just push through things. And you kind of just got the, where you had a lot of self-initiative to do things. So you didn't really look for that. So when people say it to me, like, I just kind of go, oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Just try to push it off and not let it sink in.
It just sort of like flies off of you. But then when I actually let it sink in, then I was like, well, why do I do that?
And so did you do any work on yourself? Like, are you able to accept those compliments now? I'm asking because I think this is a problem that many women have, is not being able to accept the compliments that are given to them.
I have to say it's something I'm still working on. I'm trying to do better with it. But my childhood was different. So when somebody would give me a compliment, there was a string attached. Like if somebody, like my mother, if she said something positive, or that something good was going to happen and blah blah blah, there was always strings to it.
Yes.
So that's kind of, I think, why I don't like accepting things like gifts. I'm always like, no, I don't need a gift, right? Like, because there was always something attached to it in the end.
Yes. So you feel like it was a bribery or something, it wasn't real.
It was something to hold over me later.
Later. Yes. So feeling obligated.
Yeah.
Yes. Did you have that? Did you have that in your, because I know you were married and then got divorced, and now you're in your second marriage, as you mentioned. So was that happening in your first marriage as well? That kind of
with not no, not really. But I felt like I was a doormat in that relationship.
Because I know you mentioned in the book that when you left the marriage, and that you read a book called Boundaries.
Yes, that's a really good book. I had gone to a group when I was like separated and divorced, and it was called Divorce Care. And it's actually it's a really good thing for people going through separation and divorce, because it takes you through not just the financial things that you have to go through, the legal things, but also the emotional part of it, and boundaries, and having, like, looking at your boundaries. And it had like a little section about it, and then they're like, well, there's a whole book about that. And I was like, oh, well, I want to read about that, because that sounds like what I need. Yeah.
Well, you also said, which I thought was interesting in your story as well, you said leaving the marriage was really difficult because it was embarrassing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he had like a different lifestyle than what I had, what we as a family had, that we worked hard. He did work hard, but he had a drug habit, so he was hiding that for a long time. And just yeah, it was like having boundaries to get out of that, because he was also very manipulative, and draw you back in,
Right.
Oh, I'm changed, go to counseling, nothing changed.
Right. So when you left the marriage, from what I got from your story, it sounded like it was quite a stressful time. You had to use the food bank to feed your kids. And you thought you were having a heart attack at work.
Yeah, the stress level was crazy. It was to the point, like, I was actually at a job at a school where I was working, and I was being harassed by the administration and asked to write reports that weren't true, and things that really went against my moral fiber as a person. And then I had my ex-husband, or being separated at the time, where he was like sending me texts about how I'd come home and find him dead in, different rooms and things like that. And I'm just like, that's a lot of stress. And yet I went and did my job. And really, it wasn't until I think I was divorced that people actually knew that I was divorced. Like, I didn't talk about it at work. I didn't let anybody know. Yeah.
Wow. That, keeping all that in and not having, that's super stressful. Yeah. And then you said something. You said you came to a crossroads, and you thought, I either have to go on welfare or I have to just push myself. And you decided to push yourself. And so where did you go from there?
I worked, sometimes 2-3 jobs doing different things. I worked teaching. I also did tutoring. I had put myself through university painting. So I could paint whatever, like high rises, barns, whatever people needed. And I'm very artistic, so I would sell some paintings sometimes. And, it was just a kind of a variety of things that I did to make extra money. I never said no to making extra money because,
no. Yeah. It's, and it's a tough decision for people, because I was a single mom also on welfare, and I had the same thing happen. I either go on welfare, stay home, be there with my kids, or I go out and work. And either one of those is not, there's give and takes for each one of those. But I decided that my kids need to see that we go out and we earn a paycheck, because I didn't want that generational thing that can sometimes happen. And I know it's a tough struggle for single parents, for sure, as to what road to go on. But I chose a bit of a road like you did. And my kids suffered a little bit because I was out earning, but and
I feel like that's my only regret, is that I had less time.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because you're the only parent at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So then, Lisa, you became successful. So you have quite an interesting business. Do you want to
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about what that business is, what you're doing right now?
Sure. Like I feel like this was like the best decision I ever made moving forward. And it was scary because, I was fairly recently remarried, and he wanted me to work full time. And not knowing if you're going to have an income for a while is scary. I took out a loan to start the business, and just decided I was just going to keep working and chipping away at it. And I thought, I'm probably not going to make any money, get any clients, maybe for 6 months. Like, I don't know, it's kind of like being a realtor or something. Like, nobody had heard of me out here in the Valley. Like, people knew about just like family, which is my business. So I'm a franchisee. I started with the Fraser Valley location, that's called, with Abbotsford, Chilliwack, Mission, all the way to Hope. And so we've just kind of been going and building it up. And I remember I'd been doing it for about a month, just talking to people, getting out in public, doing different marketing to get out there, some events like the women's show and things like that before COVID. And basically I just started to kind of build up that people knew about me. I got my first client and I was like, yay, started with a couple of caregivers that I hired. And most of the first hires, like, I'd say the first 10 people I hired are still with me. The only reason she moved to get married and moved down east. But it's like we're still in contact. So like with staff, we really do like to have that feeling that, we're not just a company that's like a big corporation that doesn't care about you. We try to have, free professional development training for ongoing training and benefits and pay a living wage and just the good things that you would want as an employee.
So
right?
Does your company focus mainly on seniors then?
We work a lot with seniors. We're also an ICBC vendor, so we work with people of all ages. It depends if they've been in an accident. We help people after surgeries. We help new moms. Whatever you can think of, really, we can help. Like, we've even had clients that we've come in and done meals and cleaning and looked after their puppy,
Yeah.
And then they come back and they're like, everything's done. And it's like kind of like a personal assistant, right? So like we customize the care literally to every client.
Oh, well, that's amazing. For some reason, I just had the impression that you work basically mainly with seniors, but that's interesting to know that that you offer a variety of services.
We do overnight care. So we do, it's in respite care for family caregivers of people that are going through an illness. Or they have dementia, chronic illness, Parkinson's, all different kinds of, conditions that people have, and they might need added support. So we come in and we can come every week for a few hours and give the wife or husband respite so they can go out and go grocery shopping or go see their friends or go see their grandkids and then have a break.
Wow. And so how many employees do you have right now then, approximately?
So right now we have 6 locations. So between the 6 locations, I think we're close to about 240 people.
Wow, that is amazing. 240 people.
Yeah.
Holy cow. That's a lot of people to manage.
And it's a lot of people to feel responsible for providing employment for. So like when we make decisions to grow, like we take into consideration the infrastructure needed at the office, like at our main office here, And our main office is in Chilliwack, where we do scheduling and hiring and, all that kind of thing, billing, payroll, all that stuff.
Yeah. So do you have, so the folks that you have that come and work for you, do they have to have some sort of a course under their belt, or?
So with the government laws right now, to be a home care provider or somebody providing the service, there is no legal, you have to have this.
Oh,
okay. But we do have, we have different types of care. We have like companion care where somebody comes in and they maybe take you grocery shopping, or they make you a meal,
right.
take you for a walk, and help clean. So everybody has their criminal record check, background, that's all done.
Yes.
So you have peace of mind that you're not having somebody that's unstable in your home, right?
Right.
So we do the best that we can with making sure that everything like that's in place. We're insured. We have WCB coverage, so nobody's going to sue the client or anything like that if something happens where they get injured. But we have care aides, we have personal support workers, we have a couple LPNs in different locations, but we're non-medical, so we don't have to have nursing people, because most people do not need a nurse, right? Like, they need somebody that can make their bed, help them get up and ready for their day. They don't need somebody to be giving them injections, right? Fraser Health or Vancouver Coastal or on the island, the government care, they will send someone for a short visit to do certain components. Yeah. So luckily we have that, because otherwise it would cost people a lot more. Like, we are a supplement to a lot of people, right? So they get the government care, but then they're not getting all their needs met. So then that's the part that I wanted to make sure that as a company we did, is make a difference and get all those extras done and treat people with dignity and let them keep as much independence as possible to stay in their own home and live there, because that's what most people in Canada want to do, is stay at home. They're not like, oh, yay, put me in a facility. Yeah. I don't want to cook my dinner. Right. Right. Yeah. They might not want to cook their dinner.
Although sometimes I think, oh, that would be kind of nice.
Well, and there is some, there are some nice places like independent living, or assisted living, where they do some of those things for you, but you pay quite a bit to live there.
Yes, you do.
So if you have your own place paid for, instead of paying like $4,000 or $5,000 a month, you pay a few hundred a month to have somebody come and do a bunch of meal prep. You just heat up. Yeah. We do that. We make homemade meals. That's part of the service, is having actual nutritious food. Because if somebody's trying to recover from a surgery and they're getting a can of soup that say Fraser Health, one of their workers, they're there to take a thing out of the freezer, heat it up, or open a can of soup and heat it up in the microwave or whatever. They're not there to make you lasagna or make you a pot of homemade soup.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's yes. Yeah. No, for sure. So with our population, we have such a large population. Those baby boomers, they're all pretty much, getting to the point of being retired and stuff. So you must be seeing a lot more. Are you seeing a lot more of the seniors needing assistance or asking for assistance?
Yes. A lot of times people wait until there's a crisis. They're like, I don't need help. They might be having to use a walker and they're unstable, but they're like, I can do it. And then they end up falling and injuring themselves. And then it's much worse. They need a lot more help than they would have if they just had somebody clean their bathtub for them,
Right.
So I think part of it, like what I want to do is educate people on this as well in society, because as a society, like when I was growing up, my great grandparents, well, two of them anyway, went into a care home, and it was seen as normal. And I think there's still that kind of like, well, when people get old, we just put them in a home.
Yes.
If they need that level of care, then they need to go in a facility.
Yes.
And it's like, usually when people go in facilities, they don't last that long, like especially long-term care. So it's not the same as being at home. You don't have that comfort of being in your own home, on your own schedule, sleeping in your own bed.
Yeah.
You're somewhere else, and you're reliant on other people to a great extent. So, you're vulnerable because you don't have any of your safety net. Really,
And I think you're right too. My husband's grandparents, when they were about 94, 95, he's got a lot of longevity in his family. They needed to go into a retirement community, but they had a fair amount of money. And so they had a lovely facility. The food was great, and they were very happy there. She was on the welcoming committee, and they did very well there. But then I've had,
and if they can stay together, because nowadays, it's not always possible. One might go into one part of a facility and one might be in another, and then COVID, if it comes back and that happens. But it made it so people that had been married 40, 50 years or whatever couldn't even see each other every day.
I know. I just terrible. And I think that's the big issue, is that if you have that money, you're okay. But if you don't have, because I know how much they spent every month, and it was very expensive, and they were able to stay together, but it was very expensive. And then I've seen people who have not been able to, and those facilities are not so nice. And I can think of a few of them off the top of my head where if they did have somebody just checking in on them, helping prepare those meals, doing some light housekeeping, that kind of thing, they would have been able to stay in their homes.
And it's the consistency of having the same caregiver or caregivers that are there regularly, and they know what to look for. And a lot of times, people are like, well, I only need cleaning. And it starts that way sometimes with our clients, is that they're like, well, I only need cleaning, or I need errands, I need somebody to get groceries or whatever. But sometimes when we come, the caregivers are noticing that they're not well. And, then we're like checking their blood pressure, and, if they're diabetic, we're looking at that. Like we're, investigating. And if we need to take them to the doctor or phone the nurse's hotline or whatever it is we need to do, we're there to advocate for that person, and also let family members know if they, we came to the visit and it ended up that we needed to take them to the doctor, and I think just different things that you don't think of when you're necessarily thinking just about, oh, well, somebody comes in, does meal prep, cleaning. We do all the extra, like, because the caregivers get very attached to the clients as far as like, they want to look out for their welfare. So like, if they're not feeling good, they're investigating why, or, trying to help, do little extras for them as they're there to help them, like reorganize their kitchen so they can reach things better. Things like that.
I love what you said though, is advocating for them. And I think there's a lot of, in my real estate career, I've helped many seniors move out of their homes. And I remember this one lady who lived alone. Her both daughters were in the US, and it came time for her. She was moving into a retirement community, and she didn't even have anyone to help her pack.
Yeah.
She had.
We've done that.
Yeah. just nobody, no family close by, no,
Yeah.
nobody that could reach out and help. And I remember thinking, wow, like that's so, to be going through such a change in your life,
Well,
and not
it's
have
a
anybody
huge
there to
stressor.
advocate for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, it's scary for seniors. It's scary for people of any age to feel vulnerable and that everything's on them. And they're kind of like, where do I start?
Yeah.
Like, where do I start to downsize? Because you're taking like a house of stuff. And then if they're going in a facility or even, an assisted living, they've got like maybe a tiny apartment to a room.
Yes.
So it's like, okay, what are the most valuable things to you to keep that you want to be able to see and touch and feel? Do you want your photo albums? Do you want which knickknacks? What clothes? Are you taking your bed? Are you taking this piece of furniture? Like, what are the most important parts? And that's what we help people with as well, is like, not all the time, but there has been different occasions. I had one male caregiver who did that for a client, and they had such a tight relationship, and she ended up going into a facility because her kids didn't live anywhere near where she was in Chilliwack. So it's kind of heartwarming because you see how they take the stress of something super stressful and anxiety producing for a senior, because they're not only just leaving their house and a lot of their stuff, they're leaving their neighborhood where they know people, and then they're going into some strange place where they don't know anybody, and it's scary.
Yes. I think that is just a wonderful service. As you're talking, I'm thinking back to all the different clients I've helped over the years. And another lady came to mind, and she had 2 boys, no daughters. And the boys were local, but they're busy and they're boys. And dad had passed on. And so she was ready to move on. And I remember being there and holding her hand and helping her through the whole thing. And so to think that you have that service, that Lisa, that is just, that's amazing. It really is. And I know personally that just from the people I've dealt with, that is needed so much. So all of you out there who are listening, if you know anybody who's struggling and maybe moving to a retirement community or downsizing their home even, you should reach out to Lisa, because people need help. And they need help from other people who care. And that's what I'm really hearing from you.
Well, and I think like we have different training modules for staff. Like one is on grief, because sometimes they're working with a client and one of the family, like the spouse, will have passed away and they still are working with the other client. And it's like staff not only grieve the clients when we lose clients because they get close to them and have been working with them for a period of time, but they also are there as a support for the other person grieving, for family members that are going through things. And so we try to offer support in different ways. So it's not just, we help them get up and ready, but we're there to make suggestions, or say, hey, have you read the Alzheimer's module? The office can send it to you, because sometimes family members don't really get that they shouldn't be saying, oh, do you remember when we did this?
Right. Yes.
And it's like, well, no, they don't remember. So when you say it, they're asking for their brother who's passed away 20 years ago, and you tell them that he's dead, and then they're grieving like they heard it for the first time. So like there's different things that if family members know, they know not to do it. That there's other ways to kind of work around the conversations.
Yes. Wow. Yeah. Well, it's such a needed business that you have. And I think it's fabulous that you're heading it up, because you're such a caring person. And I can feel that from you, and I can feel that it would be passed on to your staff as well, you know. So it's we all need a little help now and then, and it's so nice, even for myself now, to know that, heaven forbid, if I needed somebody, I now know where I could go to get it. Because what if I had an operation? What if something happened? You know, we don't think about these things until they happen. So, well, I thank you so much, Lisa, for doing this. I thank you for writing in volume 9 of Women Like Me. I'm really grateful that you decided to do this interview with me. I appreciate it a lot, and I appreciate what you're doing in the world. It's so needed. It's so needed. So, and also for sharing your struggles and sharing how you overcame your obstacles. And hopefully anybody who's listening or reads your story will, get some inspiration from you. So is there anything at all that you would like to share with people before we close?
Oh boy. I think that society's changed a little bit, I think, in work ethic. And like one of the things I've noticed is like that I would stress to people is really important is go into whatever job you do and do it to the best of your ability and for the right reasons. And that'll show. And if you're trying to get a raise or you're trying to move up, that shows people that you are dedicated and that you work hard, and they're more likely to, give you opportunity. Right? Yeah. I think sometimes people right now feel that they should have all the opportunity right up front, and you don't know them as a person, as an employee. And like, it's not instant gratification. It's like you have to work. No matter where you start, you're starting somewhere. You got to work your way into it. Yeah. And not give up and be indispensable. Try to be indispensable to wherever you work. And I think that it'll show and it'll make a difference in your path.
I love that. Be indispensable. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna write that down as soon as we're done here. So be indispensable. That makes complete sense. Yeah. If you just do what you can for others and do your job as good as you can and be indispensable. And
do things the way that you would expect somebody to do it for you.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Well, thanks again, Lisa. Now, everybody, if you want to reach out to Lisa, in the details of whether you're listening to the podcast, or whether you're watching this on YouTube, I have all sorts of information there where you can reach out to Lisa and find her if you need some help or have questions or anything. So, once again, Lisa, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to Women Like Me, Stories and Business. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe now on your favorite podcast platform and tell a friend. Don't miss this opportunity to transform your life and business. Let the journey begin.